This happened last summer. My best friend Nate is kind of a big deal in the underground rave and dance music circuit, especially along the West Coast. Think LA, San Diego, Vegas. He and his crew throw wild electronic events that attract big-name DJs and influencers. They've only been at it for a couple of years, but the scale they've already hit is ridiculous. High-rise rooftops, desert warehouses, full-on beach takeovers, you name it. I'm not really into EDM or house or whatever subgenre you want to call it, but Nate and I go back like high school misfits kind of back, so when he throws an event, I usually tag along. VIP entry, free drinks, no cover. The whole nine. I honestly think I've just gotten used to the chaos. Anyway, he hit me up around late July about a huge weekend event outside of San Luis Obispo. It was going to be part beach rave, part private afterparty at some massive rented villa up in the hills. He even joked it was going to be their psychedelic Coachella. I didn't ask too many questions, I just said I was in. The plan was to road trip there with another one of our mutual friends, Ben. We were supposed to link up with the rest of Nate's crew early Saturday morning to help with setup. But Ben and I decided to head out Friday night instead and crash at Nate's so we could get a head start. The drive up was uneventful. Spotify on shuffle. Highway lights melting into the horizon. Once we got there, Nate was already in full planning mode. He barely looked up from his laptop but handed us wristbands and pointed toward the cooler with a simple, "Don't drink the orange-labeled bottles. Those are for talent only." Of course, we didn't listen. Fast forward a few hours, the setup was done, and the crowd started arriving like clockwork. Everything had that hazy, dreamlike energy, the kind where you feel both excited and sort of untethered from your own body. It wasn't even that we drank a ton. We were pacing ourselves, mostly just soaking it in. The lights, the people, the music thudding like a second heartbeat in your ears. Then came the part that changed everything. Ben and I were hanging near the back of the stage, chilling by the VIP booths. That's when two girls approached us out of nowhere. One of them had this kind of effortless, icy confidence, think model off-duty, and the other was all charm and nervous smiles. They introduced themselves as Kira and Lila. I don't know what it was, maybe the way they dressed or how they casually brushed past security, but they felt like they belonged, like they were part of some inner circle we hadn't been invited into. We talked, we laughed. I remember Kira saying something about owning a media company. Lila said she modeled for fitness brands. I wasn't sober, sure, but I wasn't so drunk that I couldn't track the conversation. And then, almost like it was rehearsed, Lila offered us drinks. She reached into a small leather tote bag, designer-looking, totally out of place on a rave beach, and handed us these matte black bottles with no labels. I remember her saying something like, "These are better than what they're serving here. Trust me, trust me." I swear those words still echo in my head sometimes. I hesitated. Ben didn't. He cracked his open, took a swig, winced a little and handed it back. I followed suit. It tasted like mint mixed with cough syrup and metal. I asked her what was in it, and she smiled in a way that made me feel like she wasn't really smiling at all. That's the last normal memory I have of that night, because everything after that was wrong. Not wrong in the oops I got too drunk way. Wrong in the I was still there, still standing, still moving, but none of it felt like it was me doing any of it kind of way. There's a gap, like a tear in the fabric of my memory. A jump cut. The next thing I know, I'm standing in the middle of a house I've never seen before. No music, no crowd, just dead silence, broken by the sound of a faucet dripping somewhere in the background. It was a kitchen, I think. I remember a marble counter, a weird painting of an owl hanging crooked on a wall. Ben was gone, so were Kira and Lila. My heart was hammering in my chest, but my body felt sluggish, like my limbs were responding a full second after my brain sent the signals. I tried to call out. Nothing came out. My voice was there but distant, like I was speaking underwater. I stumbled toward the hallway and caught sight of myself in a mirror. Except it wasn't my reflection. I mean, it was me, my face, my clothes, but I didn't look like I was in my own skin. My eyes were bloodshot, half-lidded, glazed over. My mouth was slightly open. There was something about the way I was slouched, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. Then I blinked, and I was somewhere else again. This time outside, barefoot, no shirt, jeans soaked like I'd walked through a swamp. And it was freezing, cold wind, mist. I was standing on a two-lane road with no streetlights, just woods stretching endlessly in both directions. The house was nowhere to be seen. I turned in circles, trying to find anything that made sense. And that's when I realized I had no phone, no wallet, not even my ID. I wasn't even wearing my own clothes. I looked down and noticed the jeans had a patch on the thigh that read Jacob. Not me. Not Ben. I checked the back pocket, empty. Patted my chest. Nothing. I wanted to scream, but my voice still wouldn't come. I wasn't hungover. I wasn't high. I was wrong. Like something had cracked in the middle of reality, and I'd fallen through. And the thing that terrified me most? I didn't know if I was still falling. The cold cut through me like a blade. I started walking, not because I had any idea where I was going, but because standing still felt like surrendering to something I didn't understand. The road was cracked and uneven, lined by overgrown grass and a rusted wire fence that ran alongside it for what felt like forever. There were no signs, no houses, just trees pressing in from both sides, like they were waiting for me to trip and fall so they could swallow me whole. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting someone, or something, to be behind me, but I was alone. I must have walked for 30, maybe 40 minutes, before I saw a mailbox. It was old, leaning slightly, the paint peeling in long strips. There was a number on it, 409, but no name. Just a gravel path leading deeper into the trees. I followed it, hoping for help, for a house, for anything that made this night make sense. At the end of the path was a small one-story cabin. Not abandoned, but not exactly alive either. The lights were off, but a car was parked out front, covered in a thin layer of dust like it hadn't moved in weeks. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. And then the porch light flicked on. Not all at once. More like it flickered to life in sickly, uneven pulses. I stepped back, unsure of whether I was being welcomed or warned. A shadow moved behind the curtain. I froze. Then the door opened. A man, mid-50s maybe, stood there in a white tank top and plaid pajama pants. His hair was graying at the sides, but what unsettled me was how he just stared. Didn't say a word for what felt like way too long. Then he motioned me inside without speaking. I hesitated, but the wind behind me pushed harder than my fear did. Inside smelled like old wood and dust. The man walked into the kitchen without a word, poured 2 glasses of water, and set one in front of me at the table. I finally spoke up. "I don't know where I am," I said. "I think something happened." He didn't respond. I told him about the rave, the girls, the drinks, the gaps in my memory. I even told him the clothes I was wearing weren't mine. He nodded slowly, like he'd heard this kind of thing before. "Second one this week," he muttered, mostly to himself. That froze me. "What do you mean second?" I asked. He looked up at me for the first time, and I swear it was like he was sizing me up. Not physically, but spiritually. Like he was trying to figure out if I was even real. "Some girl showed up 3 nights ago," he finally said. Same look in her eyes. Said she was at a party near Morro Bay. Blacked out. Woke up near here, wearing someone else's hoodie and no shoes. My stomach dropped. "What happened to her?" He stared at the wall. "Sheriff picked her up. That's all I know." I asked him if I could use a phone. He said his landline hadn't worked in months and he didn't own a cell. I didn't believe him. I was just about to get up and leave when something caught my eye. A shoe, just one, by the back door. It was dirty and soaked the same way mine had been. And next to it, a lanyard with a VIP wristband attached to it. The exact kind Nate had handed me the night before. I didn't ask. I just left. The man didn't stop me. I ran back to the road, adrenaline forcing heat back into my body. After another 20 minutes of walking, I finally found a gas station. The place looked abandoned, but a flickering open sign buzzed in the window. There was a clerk inside. Late teens, nose ring, expression somewhere between bored and annoyed. I asked if I could borrow his phone. He handed it to me with a grunt. I didn't even know who to call at first. I couldn't remember Nate's number, Ben's either. The only one that came to me was my sister. I punched in the number with shaking hands. She picked up immediately. "Where the hell are you?" she asked. "You've been sending the weirdest texts all night." That stopped me. "I haven't had my phone." She paused. "You texted me at 3:22 saying you were crashing at some hotel. Then again at 4:50, just the word cold. What's going on?" "I didn't send those," I whispered. "Then who the hell did?" I told her I'd lost everything. She told me to stay put, that she'd track my phone with Find My iPhone. I gave her the name of the gas station and hung up. 15 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up out front. I ran out thinking it was her. It wasn't. It was Ben. He stepped out looking exactly like how I felt. Disheveled, pale, confused. "Dude," he said, voice cracking. Please tell me you remember last night. I shook my head. We stared at each other, both of us trying to say something that would make any of it make sense. But we had nothing. Just the same black hole where our memories should have been. Ben said he'd woken up in the middle of a field outside of Atascadero. Different direction, same distance from the event. Different town, same missing wallet. Same ruined clothes. And here's the worst part. He wasn't wearing his own shirt either. We stayed at that gas station for maybe an hour. Neither of us wanted to move. Tyler paced. I just sat there on the curb staring into the dark, trying to fill in the blanks like the answers were just floating out there if I squinted hard enough. But nothing came back. Not even a flash. It was like someone had gone in and erased that whole chunk of memory from both our brains with surgical precision. We were still dressed like strangers. Still shaken. Still missing everything but our damn shoes. Eventually, Tyler called his cousin to come get us. We didn't want to involve the cops again. Not yet. The last time we did, they practically rolled their eyes the moment we mentioned being drugged. We figured we'd get back to town, regroup, and go find that house ourselves. The beach house. Marcella's house. If that's even what it was. By the time we got back to the town where the event had been held, the sun was rising. It painted the whole sky this weird, pale orange that made everything feel extra surreal. Like we were characters in a video game glitching out in the wrong map. We started retracing our steps, going street by street, block by block, trying to find the path we'd taken with the girls. First, we thought we were close. The sand, the little streetlights, the condos by the dunes. It all looked familiar enough. But the house wasn't there. Or if it was, it wasn't what we remembered. None of the houses matched the layout in our heads. None of them had that same bizarre opulence. No sculptures in the windows. No pale beige wood that glowed under the lights. Nothing even close. And yeah, we were drunk that night, but we remembered that house. You don't just forget a place that looks like it belongs to a retired billionaire Olympian. We even tried knocking on one of the houses we were sure was it. Some guy answered in a bathrobe. Middle-aged, confused, pissed. Said he'd been living there for 5 years. No parties. No beach raggers. No Gianna. No Marcella. We tried another two, just to be sure. Nothing. It was like the house never existed. Or like we'd been taken somewhere else entirely that night, and our brains had just spliced that memory into the beach setting we expected. Tyler kept muttering the same phrase under his breath, like it would anchor him. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I agreed. None of it did. We'd both been drugged, probably. But that didn't explain the phone messages, or why our phones ended up together in a parking lot nowhere near us, or why we were dressed like two other dudes, or why nothing had been stolen except our wallets. And the clothes thing still freaked me out the most. Whose were they? Why swap us into those specifically? If you're gonna drug and rob two guys, fine, terrifying, but logical. But why go the extra mile to undress us, redress us, dump us somewhere random, and then return our phones? Felt like something else entirely. We both checked our bodies for marks again. Nothing. No needle bruises. No scratches. No surgery scars. But Tyler swore he had a faint, circular rash on the inside of his arm that wasn't there before. I took a pic of it on his phone. It looked like a faint ring, barely visible, like the outline of something cold pressed there for a while. I didn't have one, but I started feeling phantom itches anyway. That's how weird everything had gotten. We didn't tell Jimmy everything right away. When we finally called him, he cursed a bunch and demanded to know where we were. He'd been blowing up both our phones since the night of the party. Said he had people looking for us. Thought maybe we'd gotten arrested or OD'd or just bailed on the group. When we told him what happened, like, really told him, he went quiet for a second, then said, "You guys need to report this. I'm serious." He was pissed, but not just because we'd disappeared. He sounded scared too. He told us something neither of us had expected. We weren't the first. 2 months prior, during another event at a different beach town, another guy had vanished for nearly 10 hours after leaving with a girl he'd just met. He showed up at a gas station the next day with zero memory of what happened. Same deal, clothes swapped, phone gone, wallet missing, shoes untouched. He never told the cops. Too embarrassed. Thought maybe he'd just blacked out. Jimmy hadn't put it together until now. That story plus our story equals pattern. We filed a report later that week, though we already knew how it would go. The cops scribbled everything down, nodded politely, then told us they'd look into it. They never did. No follow-up, no calls, just a case number and an officer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. We ended up doing our own digging. We searched social media, Reddit, true crime boards, looked for keywords like beach blackout, swapped clothes, lost time, drugged at party. A few hits, nothing exact, nothing provable, just whispers, rumors, half-stories that always ended the same. I woke up in a place I didn't recognize. I had my shoes on, but my clothes were gone. The texts on my phone sounded like me, but I didn't send them. No one believed me. Eventually, we stopped looking. There's only so many dead ends you can hit before it starts messing with your brain. But every now and then, when I'm walking alone or scrolling at night, I'll think about it again. That weird feeling of being edited, like someone cut and pasted my night into a different sequence. I still have the hoodie I woke up in. It sits at the back of my closet, untouched, folded like a memory I'm too afraid to throw away. I keep thinking maybe it'll come in handy if more people speak up. If someone else says they found their friend in a different town wearing my clothes, then we're talking about something way bigger, something organized, calculated, and not random. Until then, all I have are gaps. Big, terrifying gaps filled with nothing but questions. We drove around for hours after that, trying to match anything in our memory with the streets we were seeing. Eventually, we came across a beachfront street that felt eerily familiar. Couldn't tell you why. It was just one of those feelings where something clicks in the back of your head. Tyler spotted a place that matched parts of what we remembered. The tall hedges, the slate walkway, even the mailbox looked like something he'd described to me days earlier. So we parked and walked up to the door. Some older woman opened it. Maybe late 60s. She looked surprised but not alarmed, just curious. I did the talking, keeping it vague. I asked if a girl named Gianna or Marcella lived there, or if she had a granddaughter in her 20s who might have been staying with her. She just shook her head and told us she'd been living there alone for nearly a decade. Said she doesn't rent the place out, doesn't host guests, and doesn't know anyone named Gianna or Marcella. I tried to laugh it off. Told her we'd been at a party and someone must have made a joke about living in that house. She didn't seem bothered. Just kind of stared at us like she was trying to decide if we were confused or lying. As we walked away, I couldn't shake this horrible feeling in my gut. Not fear exactly, just that deep, sour discomfort that sits with you when you know something happened to you, but you have no idea what or why. Like there's a version of your life you'll never recover because someone deleted it without your permission. We talked about it a few times afterward, mostly in passing. Tyler thinks maybe we were part of something we weren't supposed to see. Maybe something went wrong, or someone changed their mind at the last minute. I honestly don't know what's worse. That something did happen, or that we'll never know what it was. If anything ever comes up again, I'll be the first to share it. But honestly, I don't think we were meant to remember. My name's Brandon and I live in southern Tennessee, about 20 minutes from the Mississippi line. This happened to me late last summer, and I still can't drive at night without constantly checking my mirrors. I wasn't doing anything exciting that night, just heading home after a late dinner at my cousin's place in Corinth. We'd grilled out in his backyard, had a few beers, talked about dumb high school stuff. That kind of hangout. I left a little past 10, not thinking much of it. I'd made the drive 100 times before. The route home takes you through mostly rural backroads. Long stretches of dark, winding roads with no streetlights and thick woods on either side. It's the kind of place where you can go 5 miles without passing another car. Usually I liked the drive. Quiet, peaceful, a good way to unwind. But that night felt different. It wasn't just quiet, it was dead silent. Even the air felt off, like it was holding its breath. I was about 15 minutes into the drive when I noticed a set of headlights behind me. At first, I didn't think twice. I figured someone else was just heading the same direction. But the car stayed back there longer than I liked. Every curve I took, they took. Every time I slowed down for a sharp turn, they slowed too. I tested it. I braked a little harder on the next curve. They did the same. It wasn't one of those "you're just being paranoid" things. This was deliberate. The vehicle was a white Dodge Charger. I remember that specifically because my uncle drives the same one. Except this one looked beat up. The front bumper was slightly dented. and the headlights weren't aligned right. One was higher than the other, like it had been in a crash and never fully fixed. Every time we passed a patch of light, it looked more and more like something you'd find abandoned on the side of the road. I pulled slightly to the right, tapping my brakes again, giving them space to pass if they wanted to. But they didn't. They stayed exactly 4 car lengths back. Not more, not less. Started messing with my head. I kept telling myself maybe they lived out here too. Maybe it was all just coincidence. But then I turned onto Red Creek Road. It's a gravel stretch with nothing on it. No houses, no gas stations, nothing for almost 10 minutes. You only turn onto it if you're heading to my town. No one else uses it. And the Charger turned right behind me. That's when I really started to panic. My hands were sweating against the wheel. My breathing changed. I couldn't even focus on the music anymore. I lowered the volume and kept glancing in the mirror every few seconds. The headlights stayed the same distance, following every slight sway of my truck like a shadow that didn't want to be lost. Then something really weird happened. A small animal, a raccoon or a possum, ran out across the road. I swerved just enough to avoid it, and the Charger swerved in the exact same way, almost synchronized. That's when I knew 100%. This wasn't random. I was being followed. I started calculating. I knew the next intersection was about 5 miles away. There was a church on the corner with a big lot and a lit-up signboard. I made up my mind. I was going to pull in there. At least it would be lit and maybe someone else would be around. But just as I hit the halfway point, that stupid low-fuel light dinged. And I swear to you, my stomach dropped. I hadn't checked the gas gauge before leaving my cousin's. That was on me. And now I was stuck in the middle of nowhere with a psycho behind me, praying my old Silverado didn't sputter out. I eased off the accelerator, hoping it'd stretch what little fuel I had left. The Charger was still back there, still close, still matching everything I did. I considered calling 911, but there was barely any signal out here. 1 bar, maybe 2, and it kept flickering. Besides, what would I say? Hey, I think I'm being followed by a creepy Dodge Charger? They'd tell me to go to a station. There wasn't one for another 6 miles. The church finally came into view like a miracle in the dark. Just seeing that big white steeple and the glowing sign felt like oxygen. I turned my blinker on early, hoping it would seem casual. Then I took the right and pulled into the lot. And that Charger just kept driving. No turn, no hesitation. It just passed by and vanished into the night. I sat there, parked under the big light for what felt like 10 minutes, heart pounding, trying to catch my breath. Maybe I was wrong? Maybe the guy was just heading somewhere else? Then I saw it. From across the field next to the church, those headlights appeared again. They'd looped around. There's a dirt path that cuts across some woods and connects to another back road. The Charger had used it to circle back around. And now it was creeping through the trees, no longer on the road, just slowly rolling through tall grass behind the church, like it was hunting me. I threw the truck into drive and gunned it. I don't even remember turning onto the next road. All I know is I was doing 70 in a 45, kicking up gravel, fishtailing like crazy. I had no plan, no idea where I was going, just away. I didn't stop until I hit the main highway and saw the glow of a Shell station. I swerved in, jumped out, and ran inside like a madman. I must have looked insane, sweating and out of breath. But the guy behind the counter didn't even blink. I told him what happened. He let me use the phone to call my brother. I didn't want to be alone. My brother drove 40 minutes to meet me there. I filled up while I waited and kept scanning the road. But the Charger never showed again. When I got home, I checked every camera I could find near that church. Nothing. It was too far out. No traffic cams. No neighbors with doorbells. But I know what I saw, and I still don't drive those roads after dark. Ever. I thought that would be the end of it. But about a month later, something happened that made all the fear come flooding back. I was scrolling through Facebook one night when I saw a shared post from our local sheriff's department. It was a bolo, be on the lookout, for a stolen white Dodge Charger last seen in our county, connected to multiple break-ins and one reported kidnapping attempt. The vehicle description matched everything I remembered. White Charger, dented bumper, one misaligned headlight, The post even mentioned it had been spotted circling around a church parking lot in the early morning hours, around the same church I'd pulled into that night. I just sat there staring at my screen for a solid minute. I could feel my heart in my throat. It had to be the same car. There was no doubt in my mind anymore. I reported everything right then, gave them my full statement, shared the date, the time, everything I could remember. They took it seriously but said there wasn't much to go on. I don't know what happened with that case. I never saw another update, but I think about it all the time, that I could have helped catch someone dangerous sooner if I hadn't waited. If I just called the police when it was happening. That regret still eats at me. If anything else ever happens, I'll definitely send another.